Yo, what it is, YouTube? It's your boy, Nipsey, coming back with another bullseye of a tutorial here today on the channel. I wanted to talk about the TLM103. I love kind of doing these reviews. So this is kind of like a review of the emulation inside of the UAD sphere. I love doing these reviews because not only do I get to talk about the microphone, but I also get to talk about the UAD sphere and how, you know, sometimes like these different type of emulations, these different type of microphones, whose voice does it work on and everything like that. So that's why I really like to talk about this, you know, because you need the ear imagination. When you're buying a microphone, you need the ear imagination to already know, like, okay, is this microphone gonna fit on my voice? So this is what these videos are usually about when I do it. So if you guys do have any more ideas or suggestions for videos, go ahead and drop it down below. I'm more than happy to get to it. So something like a TLM103 is a very, very interesting microphone. I'm actually talking into it right now. The word that comes to mind when I think of something like a TLM103 is wild, is the word wild. I usually love to use this on my voice. You know, I love this microphone. Well, you guys know in general, I just love making music in general. I love talking about making music, so I feel like every microphone fits on me, you know. So the most important thing about the TLM103 is we got to understand, what is TLM? Like, what does that even stand for? Those are just not letters like A, B, C. You know, the TLM essentially stands for a transformerless. So the microphone doesn't have a transformer. You know, a lot of the times people are complaining about the TLM103 being a very harsh microphone. It's too sibilant. They're complaining, wham, wham, wham. The microphone doesn't sound good on my voice. But before you ever buy a microphone, you need to understand what the microphone is giving. What's the frequency response, right? So because the TLM103 doesn't have a transformer inside of it, you got to think about the tonal seesaw. Okay, making music, frequencies are kind of like a seesaw. Sounds are like a seesaw. Okay, think about kids at a seesaw. You know, the high frequencies is on one side of the seesaw, and then the low frequencies is on another side of the seesaw, like two kids sitting on the seesaw, right? So when you have a situation where you don't have the transformer, you know, pretty much what that does is that puts more emphasis on more of the high end frequency. So that's kind of why it sounds brighter, you know. And also as well, with something like the TLM103, it has a kind of like an advantage, I think, because, you know, it has a presence boost at somewhere around 5Ks. It has that peak boost. So that's actually kind of good, because if you want vocals that cut through a mix, or if you feel like you have the type of voice that doesn't cut through the mix, you know, maybe it lacks some high mid energy, maybe a microphone like this might fit you. I feel like for the price point, I mean, it's a no-brainer to only buy a UAD sphere, because you get this emulation and you get all the other types of emulations. When I first started out as an engineer in the studio, I recorded like 100 songs, different people with different voices using the TLM103. So I'm very used to it. And I've had the UAD sphere for a while now, so I feel like I can really talk about it. But the most important thing too is that, you know, it's a Neumann microphone. You know, when we understand the history of Neumann microphones, the U47, the U67, the U87, but the U87, I feel like is the best one for rap music. Literally, it's the best one for rap music. I put the U87 up against the sphere, sounded exactly like it. Put the sphere up against the TLM103, sounded exactly like it. So I think a sphere is really, really, really good. A TLM103 is really, really good too. But the sphere is, I feel like it's even better though, because in the future, you might always want to switch out your microphone. So why not get a microphone that sounds like all the different types of microphones? So I'm not trying to push the sphere on you, but I'm just letting you know, hey, you know, it's usually rappers like Nas as well as J. Cole are the type of people who like to use something like a TLM103 because it boosts out the nuances. You know, if you're a lyrical rapper, you want people to hear your lyrics. You want them to feel the reason rising that shit the I would code word. Like usually if you're somebody who's rapping like that, you might want a TLM103 because it's gonna play into your strengths, you know, a situation like that. Or maybe if you have a deeper voice, a TLM103 might be good for you because of, like, you're trying to balance out that tonal seesaw. Maybe your voice is more of a deepness, right, more than the high end. So maybe you want to get a microphone that is going to give you a little bit of that peak, that high mid energy that's going to balance out the seesaw. Like how I said, making music is about the tonal seesaw and everything like that. Okay, so, you know, people always complain about the TLM103. Oh, it's not good enough, it's harsh, it's too harsh. But J. Cole recorded a Power Trip on a TLM103 with a basic laptop and a basic equipment. So never complain about the equipment. Microphones are like cameras. They give you what you put into them like a camera. If you got a fat pimple on your face, even if you take a picture with a really nice camera, what do you think is going to happen? That camera is going to show you how fat that pimple is. You know what I mean? So the same thing about the microphones. You gotta be accountable for yourself sometimes when it comes to making music. Well, so what if the microphone doesn't fit you? You gotta rap. You gotta rap every day, and just maybe go to a local studio, try out the microphone. If it don't fit you, okay, it doesn't fit you, try another one. But you can't keep constantly complaining, this microphone don't fit me and it don't fit me. Make music, don't make excuses. So the last thing that I pretty much wanted to talk about the TLM103 when it comes to the Sphere is how would I process something like this on the way in? How would I mix something like this, if I had a TLM103, vocal going on the way in? So usually, when it comes to something like a TLM103, honestly, if I had a UAD Apollo and I had the Sphere, I would probably use the stock preamp. Because if you was to use something like maybe like the Neve preamp, kind of like how I'm talking right now, it sounds like my vocals is really, really just hyped up and really hyped up. And sometimes, it's coming from that, that transistor coming out of the Neve. The Neve has a transistor and a transformer. So maybe, you could also play it in a different way like that, depending on what type of compressor you want to use or depending on how you want to process the vocal. Maybe because the TLM103 lacks a transformer in it, maybe you might want to use a preamp that has a transformer in it to get it back balanced. But for me personally, I would probably just use the stock preamp flat. And then when I start to get into the DAW, I'd probably use something like a tape emulation or something like that. Whatever it is, I would use something that would make the vocals sound a little bit softer, not necessarily de-essing. Because with something like the TLM103, because it has that little poke, that little peak, that little peak boost, if you start overly de-essing, well, it's gonna start to become a little bit audible and everything like that once you start to get heavy-handed with the de-esser. So if you do have a TLM103 microphone, why not try to use something like a saturator, or try to use something like a tape emulation, or something that's gonna smoothen out any potential harshness that the microphone might give you. No microphone is perfect, and nobody's voice is perfect as well. So that's kind of like some general ideas that I want to give you guys about how how good the TLM103 is. I actually think there's maybe another different variation of it with the UAD Sphere, but usually with something like the TLM103, it's usually for those mainstream vocals like Billie Eilish, Drake, J. Cole. If you want that mainstream sound, one of the many different types of microphones that can give you that is the TLM103. It's a household name. It's honestly, in my opinion, a can't miss mic. It's always coming down to the engineer, because if you got a good engineer who understands, okay, this person's got a harsh voice, right? And I'm using a TLM103, well, maybe I got to compensate for that in the DAW. Maybe I got to do a certain processes that I wouldn't do with somebody else's voice, where the TLM103 would boost that presence and actually help them. So it's always, we got to start blaming ourselves. We got to start holding ourselves accountable and not some clunk of metal. You know what I mean? Like me personally, I would never want a piece of metal like a microphone or an interface or anything be the reason why my music sounds good. I want it to be me, my heart, my love for the game. So don't ever forget about that, So that's pretty much the end of the video that I have here for you today. I hope I was able to give you guys a little bit of advice about how dope the UAD Sphere is. It's always constantly winning. I went to a bunch of different studios. I'm a traveling engineer. So I go to a bunch of different studios in South Florida and Miami, all that stuff, right? Use 87s, 103s, 102s, all that, and the Sphere sounds like every single one of them. Like the regular general public cannot tell the difference between a microphone. So just use what works best for you, and make sure you always love making music, because that's what's gonna show up. You love the game, you take a picture of that, it's gonna show up in the music, and people are gonna be able to connect to that. So I just want to say thanks a lot for being a great part of my YouTube family. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Appreciate you guys now. Peace.